Welcome to Voyage Daily Tech, the most important news personalized for you every day, supported by Voyage.com.
After listening to today's news, you'll know. First, Elon Musk demands $134 billion from OpenAI and Microsoft, alleging a betrayal of its founding mission. We'll analyze why this legal battle is a turning point and how it could disrupt OpenAI's market leadership for the benefit of Musk's XAI. Second, $15 billion valuation for ClickHouse signals a major disruption in the real-time analytics market for AI. We'll explore how its acquisition of German startup Langfuse could transform it from a database provider into a foundational platform for the AI ecosystem. Third, US government pressures big tech to fund a $15 billion power grid expansion for AI, creating a major conflict over infrastructure costs. So we'll discuss why this plan creates a carbon lock-in and what it means for the sustainability pledges of major tech companies. Fourth one, $1 trillion AI infrastructure cost pushes OpenAI to test ads in ChatGPT, risking user trust for a new revenue stream. In this episode, we'll break down this high-stakes gamble and what it signals for the emerging split between ad-supported and premium AI models. Fifth, big tech's acqui-hire strategy to absorb AI talent without antitrust review is now under direct fire from the US Federal Trade Commission. Today, we'll take a closer look at these de facto mergers and their implications for federal antitrust enforcement in the AI talent wars. The most unexpected news in the tech world today has to be Elon Musk demanding up to $134 billion from OpenAI and Microsoft. That's not a typo. The tech entrepreneur is arguing he deserves the wrongful gains from his early support of the artificial intelligence startup he co-founded. His court filing breaks it down. He wants between $65 and $109 billion from OpenAI and another $13 to $25 billion from Microsoft. The core of the fight is Musk's explosive claim that OpenAI violated its founding non-profit mission when it restructured into a for-profit powerhouse. He alleges the company he helped create has betrayed its original purpose. OpenAI was founded back in 2015 with a very clear public mission to ensure that artificial general intelligence, or AGI, benefits all of humanity. That was the charter. But in 2019, the organization made a massive pivot to attract the huge amounts of capital and talent needed for this kind of research. It created a new capped profit company. This structure was designed to let investors make a return, but only up to a certain limit, with any excess profit supposed to be funneled back into the original non-profit mission. Musk is essentially arguing that this pivot and the massive partnership with Microsoft that followed was a betrayal of that core promise to humanity. We previously analysed how OpenAI has tried to de-risk vendor lock-in by spreading workloads to multiple infrastructure partners, even as it pursued its Stargate ambitions. Today, the focus shifts to whether the Microsoft alliance became the flashpoint for that alleged mission drift. And here's where the numbers get truly wild. Musk's filing says his early contributions totaled about $38 million. Now, his legal team argues that just like an early startup investor, he's entitled to gains that are many orders of magnitude greater than his initial investment. But what's really tricky is figuring out how to even calculate that. Musk's lawyers are trying to put a price tag on intangible things like the credibility his name brought, the key people he helped recruit, and his early vision. Financial experts have methods for this, like estimating the future income generated by that early credibility, but it's highly subjective. This is why the defense is so quick to call it made up, because there's no clear market price for hype. But OpenAI and Microsoft are firing back hard. OpenAI has dismissed the lawsuit as baseless and part of a harassment campaign. A Microsoft lawyer says there is no evidence the company aided and abetted OpenAI. Now get this, that term aided and abetted is actually central to understanding why Microsoft is involved. The legal theory here is that a third party, in this case Microsoft, can be held liable if they knowingly assisted in a breach of duty. Musk's team claims OpenAI's leaders breached their duty to the nonprofit's mission and that Microsoft, with its multi-billion-dollar investment and deep integration of OpenAI's tech into its products, knew about it and substantially helped it happen. Continuing our last discussion about OpenAI's push to balance multiple infrastructure partners, the situation this time is somewhat different. The question isn't technical diversification, it's whether Microsoft's role can be framed as knowing assistance. the battle is escalating. In a separate filing, the two companies are asking a judge to block Musk's expert witness, arguing his financial analysis is made up, unverifiable, and unprecedented. They call the lawsuit an implausible attempt to transfer billions from a non-profit to a former donor who has now become a direct competitor with his own AI company, XAI. This brings up another critical layer to the story. A while back, we walked through XAI's $20 billion raise and the vendor investor feedback loop with NVIDIA and Cisco, a strategy that secures compute supply by turning key suppliers into backers. Beyond the money, this lawsuit could be a powerful form of competitive warfare. A long, public, and expensive legal battle can be incredibly disruptive. It can drain resources, scare off investors, and damage a company's reputation. Think about it. A drawn-out fight could seriously harm OpenAI's operations and its critical partnership with Microsoft, which could, in turn, create a huge opening in the market for Musk's own competitor, XAI. In that context, if OpenAI's momentum stalls, XAI's freshly capitalized supplier anchor position could benefit. With a jury trial expected to start in April, this is more than just a lawsuit. It's a high-stakes war between a founder and the AI titan. He helped build a conflict that pits some of the biggest names in technology against each other for the future of artificial intelligence. Speaking of high-stakes competition in the AI world, the battle isn't just between the established giants. A new player in the database market is making a move that could shake up the entire ecosystem. Database management firm ClickHouse just locked in a $400 million funding round, catapulting its value to a staggering $15 billion. And that valuation is built on some truly staggering growth. Investors are betting on incredible performance metrics, like the fact that ClickHouse's annual recurring revenue has grown by over 250% year over year. That's not just growth, that's an explosion. This surge is happening because of the intense demand for real-time analytics as companies race to integrate AI, and that real-time part is absolutely critical. When you use an AI feature, like a personalized recommendation or a fraud alert, it needs to react instantly. Traditional databases often process data in batches, which creates delays. For modern AI, that's a non-starter. You need insights from data the moment it's created for everything from security monitoring to live product personalization. That's the bottleneck ClickHouse is built to solve. An analyst from Running Point Capital Advisors put it simply, as companies bolt AI features onto everything, they need fast, cheap, real-time analytics. And that's exactly what ClickHouse provides. So how exactly do they achieve this speed? Well, ClickHouse is built differently from the ground up. It uses something called a columnar storage architecture. So instead of reading entire rows of data like a traditional database, it can grab just the specific columns of data it needs for a query. This, combined with advanced data compression and a technique called vectorized execution, makes it incredibly fast, cutting query times down to milliseconds. But this isn't a solo race. ClickHouse is in a brutal fight for dominance against heavyweights like Snowflake and Databricks. To really understand the scale of this battle, consider this. In some benchmark tests running massive queries on over 100 billion rows of data, ClickHouse has been shown to deliver results in a fraction of the time and at a fraction of the cost of its rivals. We're talking about tasks that might cost over $100 on other platforms, costing less than $20 on ClickHouse. That's the fast and cheap advantage in action. Databricks recently hit a valuation of $134 billion. The money flooding into this space is staggering. But if you think ClickHouse is just playing catch-up, you're wrong. The company just made a major power move by acquiring Langfuse, a German startup that builds open source tools for creating and testing the large language models that power modern AI. This is where the situation takes a more complex turn. The acquisition of Langfuse, which is a leader in what's called LLM observability, means ClickHouse isn't just a place to store your data anymore. It's becoming a platform to monitor, evaluate, and improve the AI applications themselves. This isn't just about managing data anymore. This is about owning the tools that build AI itself. They are moving up the food chain, directly challenging their rivals on new ground. With a client list that already includes giants like Meta, Sony, and Tesla, ClickHouse is signaling it's ready for the main event. This $15 billion valuation isn't just a number, it's a war chest. Backed by new funding and a strategic acquisition, ClickHouse is making a clear and aggressive play to become a foundational technology for the entire AI ecosystem. But, all this growth in AI requires an incredible amount of power, which brings us to our next story. The bill for the AI revolution is coming due, and the government just decided who should pay for it. Big tech. The Trump administration has teamed up with a bipartisan group of governors from 13 states, including Democrats, Josh Shapiro and Wes Moore, to pressure the largest electricity market in the US. Their target is PJM interconnection, and their plan is to hold an emergency power auction to force a massive build-out of new power plants. This kind of direct pressure from the government is a huge deal, raising serious questions about the stability and neutrality of our electricity market and setting a precedent that could have long-term consequences. The proposal would compel companies, specifically data center operators, to sign unusually long 15-year electricity contracts. The goal is to fund a staggering $15 billion in new power generation. However, if you zoom out, you'll see another layer of strategy at play. These long-term contracts create what experts call a carbon lock-in. To get that much power online quickly, the new plants will likely be fossil fuel or nuclear. This directly clashes with the public climate pledges made by the very tech companies that need the energy. For instance, despite ambitious net zero goals, Microsoft's emissions have actually increased by over 23% since 2020, largely due to its AI and cloud expansion. They are being asked to fund infrastructure that contradicts their own green promises. This unprecedented move comes as power grids scramble to meet the soaring electricity demand from AI, and as lawmakers face what is being called a growing fury from Americans over rising electricity rates. At the heart of that fury is a deep imbalance. Right now, the average residential customer in the US pays around 17 cents per kilowatt hour for electricity. Industrial users, like data centers, pay just over 9 cents. This proposal is essentially trying to create a two-tiered system, forcing the biggest users to pay for their own expansion, which could, in theory, stabilize rates for everyone else. But the rabbit hole goes deeper. While the White House and governors are applying immense pressure, they can't actually mandate the auction. And in a stunning twist, reports indicate that PJM, the very grid operator at the center of this storm, wasn't even invited to the administration's announcement. The conflict is a direct response to the energy burden from the tech industry's AI boom. The situation presents a fascinating duality. When we place the US approach of a high-pressure, market-based fight alongside China's state-planned model of offering huge power discounts, the contradiction becomes clear. Meanwhile, the EU is focusing on regulation to improve energy efficiency. This all boils down to a single, powerful directive from the Department of Energy. It states that data centers should pay more for new generation than residential customers and calls for them to be allocated the costs for new infrastructure unless they bring their own power plants online. Ultimately, this represents a fundamental shift in how we pay for major infrastructure. Historically, projects like the interstate highway system were funded by the government, with taxpayers footing 90% of the bill through things like gasoline taxes. This new proposal creates a direct user pays model, where a specific industry is being told to finance the public-facing infrastructure it needs. It's a bold and controversial new chapter in American industrial policy. We were just talking about a $15 billion price tag for the power grid, but if that was just the appetizer, the main course is just being served. $1 trillion. That's the projected cost for OpenAI's artificial intelligence infrastructure by 2030. A while back, we talked about OpenAI's capital as a moat strategy, the Stargate scale build-out, and the idea that the check would be historic. Today, that price tag isn't theoretical anymore. It's the bill coming due. And to be clear, that astronomical figure isn't just about buying more computers. We're talking about building massive, city-sized data centers, securing millions of next-generation GPUs that are in incredibly high demand, and powering it all with an immense amount of energy. The sheer scale of this investment creates a huge barrier to entry, suggesting that building cutting-edge AI is so expensive that advertising might be the only way to make it available to the masses. We previously analysed how single power commitments measured in the hundreds of megawatts, enough to light up a mid-sized city, were being structured as operating expenses to stay asset light. That same playbook now runs headfirst into the question of how to fund it. And now we know how they might start paying for it. Ads are officially coming to ChatGPT. OpenAI will begin testing advertisements for users on its free and lower price Go plans in the US. This is a massive departure for a company that has so far relied on subscriptions. While the company promises the ads will be separate from chatbot answers and that user data won't be shared with marketers, the real story is the high-stakes gamble being made. A few days ago, we mentioned how Google is trying to write the rulebook for AI shopping with its Universal Commerce Protocol. In parallel, OpenAI is testing the ad rails that could underwrite mass market access. Now, to pull this off without a massive privacy backlash, OpenAI is likely using a new kind of privacy-preserving ad technology. Instead of building a permanent profile on you like Google or Meta, the ads are based only on the current conversation. This is done through something called on-device decisioning, where the ad choice is made locally on your computer or phone, meaning your personal data never has to be sent to an external marketer. It's a fascinating technical solution to a major privacy problem. And it lines up with what we've discussed before about OpenAI's real-time flywheel. Decisions made locally are instant, which keeps sessions longer and higher value. ChatGPT has a staggering 800 million weekly active users. That audience could unlock a significant revenue stream, but it could also trigger a mass exodus. And there's a powerful historical precedent for this erosion of trust. Think about the decades-long battle over trust in Google search. Research shows that as the line between organic results and ads blurred, user trust eroded. One study found that while 68% of users found search engines unbiased in 2005, today only 11% of consumers trust the first tool they use. Even if OpenAI can technically separate ads from answers, the mere presence of commercial sponsorship could make users question the objectivity of the tool. We previously analysed this trust slide as a design problem, not just a placement problem, and that lesson applies here. One analyst put it bluntly, if the ads feel clumsy or opportunistic, users can easily switch to rival chatbots like Google's Gemini or Anthropic's Claude. But the rabbit hole goes deeper. This move also puts immense pressure on its competitors. It forces companies that have positioned themselves as ad-free by design to clarify their own monetization philosophies, potentially starting an arms race for revenue in the AI space. Meanwhile, Google is pushing the Universal Commerce Protocol, an open standard for how AI agents buy. So the money map isn't just ads versus subscriptions, it's also whose transaction rails become the default. What we're witnessing is a fundamental split in the entire industry. This forces a philosophical divide, creating two distinct camps. On one side, you'll have ad-supported free models like OpenAI and likely Google. On the other, you'll see premium privacy-first subscription services like Anthropic, which has built its entire business model around enterprise clients who pay for an ad-free secure experience. Continuing our last discussion about architectures, we contrasted OpenAI's partner-heavy optionality with xAI's vertically aligned path. This monetization fork tracks with those broader strategic choices. OpenAI is caught between its trillion-dollar ambition and the loyalty of its massive user base. This isn't just about a new feature. It's a fundamental shift that could reshape the entire AI landscape. The company is betting that its technology is compelling enough to make users tolerate ads, a high-stakes wager that will be tested against its powerful ad-free rivals. And just like those city-scale power deals structured to look nimble on the balance sheet, this is another move to fund the speed flywheel only now. The payoff will be measured in user trust. That trillion-dollar figure highlights just how expensive the AI arms race is, but it's not all about hardware and energy. The most valuable resource might just be the people building the AI, and that's leading to a whole new kind of billion-dollar spending spree. So Meta just spent $15 billion, not to buy a company, but to hire its CEO. What we're seeing is the rise of a human capital monopoly. Believe it or not, there is a massive global shortage of elite AI talent. For every one qualified AI professional, there are more than 3 open jobs. This scarcity is driving a gold rush, where a handful of tech giants are trying to corner the market, not on products, but on the brilliant minds that create them. A while back, we talked about how Meta has been redirecting money from VR into this race, shuttering successful studios and even putting a $400 million fitness app into maintenance mode because the backdrop is an AI spending war. We also flagged a reported $14.3 billion acqui-hire of the founder and team from Scale AI, where the eye-popping packages fueled internal resentment and a 64% retention rate, well below places like Google DeepMind. That's the context for today's headline. And they're not alone. Microsoft recently structured a $650 million deal with a startup, not as an acquisition, but as a licensing fee to bring its top talent in-house. Take the deal with the startup Inflection AI, which had huge consequences for its original investors. Microsoft hired away the founders and most of the staff, effectively gutting the company. The venture capitalists who had poured money into Inflection weren't part of a lucrative acquisition. Instead, they were left holding a shell of a company which had to pivot its entire business model. It's a brutal move. We said a while back that writing giant checks doesn't guarantee loyalty. Now investors are discovering it doesn't guarantee an exit either. This isn't just business as usual. It's a new high-stakes strategy being deployed by the biggest names in tech, and it has a name, the acqui-hire. Instead of buying a startup outright, which would trigger a massive antitrust review, tech giants are simply hiring away their key employees and licensing their technology. It's a move designed to fly under the radar of federal regulators. Continuing our earlier discussion about capital as a moat, this is the legal theme these deals have been exploiting. The key to this strategy is a law called the Hart-Scott-Rodino Act, or HSR Act. This law requires companies to report large mergers to the government for review. For a deal to trigger this review, it generally has to be worth more than about $126 million. So, by structuring these as talent and licensing deals instead of full acquisitions, companies can often keep the official transaction value just below that magic number, bypassing the entire government oversight process. But the government is starting to notice. The US Federal Trade Commission is now officially targeting this practice. FTC Chairman Andrew Ferguson went on the record stating, "We are beginning to examine these acqui-hires to make sure they are not an attempt to get around our merger review process. A few days ago, we framed this as a cat and mouse dynamic. Today, there's your mousetrap." From the FTC's perspective, these deals are what they call de facto mergers. In other words, even if it's not a merger on paper, the end result is the same. A big company absorbs a potential competitor and competition is reduced. This isn't just about Meta and Microsoft. The list of players includes Nvidia, which hired the CEO of chip startup Grok, and Amazon, which hired founders from Adept AI. The core conflict is now clear. A new corporate playbook is clashing with federal oversight. And remember, the incentive to push these boundaries is enormous. Just a few days ago, we talked about OpenAI's plan to pour over $1.4 trillion into infrastructure, including that Stargate supercomputer idea. That's the scale of the arms race everyone's reacting to. Interestingly enough, this cat and mouse game is as old as regulation itself. When the US first passed antitrust laws in the 1890s to break up monopolies, companies immediately invented new corporate structures to get around them. It's a predictable cycle. The government creates a rule and corporate lawyers find a creative way to navigate around it. What we're seeing now is just the 21st century version of that same game played at light speed. And as we flagged earlier, the internal strains resentment over mega packages and lower retention were already cracks in the strategy. Now add regulatory heat on top. These massive talent and technology deals, once seen as a clever loophole, are now at the center of a major regulatory battle. The strategy to sidestep scrutiny has now put big tech directly in the crosshairs of the FTC.
That's it for today on Voyage Daily Tech. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.